We're almost halfway there. So what is going to happen to the rest of the book? And I guess Stephen Chbosky must have thought that too, because he stopped writing about one thing and started a whole ass different book. Hey everyone, hello, welcome to my booktube channel. Today we're going to be seeing the books I read in January and what I felt about them, and the bottom line is it was unexpected, as in they were unexpectedly good, but also unexpectedly very bad. And so yeah, let's start. The first book that I read this month is Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell, which is a sequel to Carry On. But before we get into Wayward Son, I need to talk about Carry On. Let's get one thing clear. I did not like Carry On. It was clunky, awkward, and felt like a badly written HP fanfiction, which it kind of is. I know a lot of people like this book, but I only read it last year, and after having read a lot of own voices, queer books featuring people of color, this book seems so bland to me, and that's fine. But Wayward Son I did enjoy. Like, not a lot, but still, unexpectedly, I actually liked Wayward Son. And I'll tell you why, but before we go into that, what is this book about? This book is essentially a road trip. Simon and Bass's relationship is kind of falling apart, and them being typical teens are not communicating that with each other. Penelope, being, a typical obnoxious Penelope, freaks out that her old friend Agatha is not responding to her texts and decides that she's in danger and decides they have to be the ones to save her. So she fakes her passport and makes fake money with magic and decides to go on a road trip to America to rescue her. Which I have to say is very brave of a brown girl to do in this political climate in America. That's all I'm saying. And yeah, surprises, disasters, and adventures ensue as a result, and we're going to read about that. Now, why did I like this book when I vehemently dislike Carry On? Well, it's mainly because of the banter. The way the characters sassed each other back and the way their internal monologues worked was highly amusing to me. And this mainly has to do with the fact that it is typical my type of humor. So I guess this is subjective, but then everything is subjective. So anyways, now a lot of people went into this book expecting a lot of cute Simon and Bass moments. I, for one, I'm glad that there weren't many of those. This book was definitely not about their cute relationship or the lack thereof. It was about the adventure they were on, and boy was that a ride. I think the queer relationship trip in this book is kind of bad, and there are a lot of little annoying discrepancies that I can just talk about, but I'm not going to, because if you're reading this book for nuanced plot or character growth or strong character arcs, like, girl, what are you doing? This is not the book you should be reading for this. Wayward Son is a quick, fun, one-time exciting read where you just have to sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. And if that's what you're looking for, then that's what you'll get. Pick it up if you're in the mood for it, and you're bound to enjoy it, because I sure did. I rated this at 3 out of 5 stars, and I read this as part of PanMac India's YA Readathon. And they were nice enough to also send me a review copy of this book to read. So thank you very much for that. So the second book that I read this month is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oink and Braithwaite. If you don't know what this book is about already, it's about these two sisters, Korede and Ayula, where Ayula is this conventionally pretty one who happens to have this quirky habit of murdering her boyfriends. And whenever she does this, she would usually call her sister Korede, who is a nurse and also a very cleaning oriented person, and also, doesn't want her sister to end up in jail, helps Ayula, or rather mainly cleans up her mess for her. Ayula always claims that she does it out of self-defense, but Korede starts to have her doubts about whether or not this is true at all, and if her sister really is a serial killer, but she still, assists her sister anyways because, family. So the drama goes to a high point when Ayula starts dating this doctor who Korede loves, who works with her in the hospital. And we see Korede having this moral dilemma where she wants to save the doctor from being murdered, but also from not, snitching on her sister. So this book is very popular, mainly for its dark sense of humor. I kind of saw the places where they had dark sense of humor, but I kind of was not impressed by it. It was just for me. Now, I'll be honest with you, I expected to love this book. This has been shortlisted for a lot of awards, and this is very hyped in general. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna enjoy this book. But it wasn't that good or worth the hype. Like, this is a very short book, and the plot was pretty straightforward. Like, literally, nothing ever happened. There are no subplots, there are no anything. We basically just have this one straightforward narrative, and there is no problem with that in general, except there was no rising of the stakes, there was no tension, plot twist or anything. The story just fizzles out. That was disappointing. Now, I did like some parts of the book, especially the sister-sister relationship, because, you know, like, Ayula is a very naive kind of girl. I mean, like, she's not naive enough to be, you know, a murderer, but, you know, also she is very tone deaf when it comes to mourning her ex-boyfriends, because, like, people are searching for them and everything, but she just, like, puts up Snapchat pictures of her being happy or doing some cooking or something, and Korede is the one who is usually policing her, like, oh my god, no, don't do that. We also see this past storyline where we see what happened with their father, because apparently the father was kind of a bad person. So we see where maybe Korede started to have this protective instinct over Ayula, even though Ayula kind of treats her not so good. And I don't know, I just love the relationship dynamic between them, and I would suggest that is the one main reason why this book is worth reading. But other than that, especially the plot, the ending was just very anticlimactic, and usually when you see a hype book, you understand, at least I understand, the merit of why this is hyped, you know, like, hey, it's not my thing, but I get why it's hyped. But I honestly cannot think of a reason why this book is so popular and why it was shortlisted for the Women's Prize or anything, because I'm sure there are so many other books that are so good rather than this very lackluster one. And yeah, I'm very disappointed with it. I only rated it 2 stars out of 5, and yeah. So the third book that I read this month is Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. Do you see this? Do you see this gorgeous book? It is an arc of one of my favorite authors provided to me by the publisher, and I was just so excited to read this and to be able to even hold this in my hands, and it ended up disappointing me so much. So the plot of this book is basically that the world is going to end on Christmas Day. This book is sort of like The Nightmare on Elm Street meets Coraline by Neil Gaiman. Christopher Reese, our 7-year-old MC, gets an imaginary friend, a Mr. Nice Man from parallel imaginary world, and he asks Christopher to build a treehouse to help stop the wicked hissing lady from breaking the glass between the imaginary world and the real world. Kind of like a metaphorical Pandora's box of nightmares situation, death and all that. So let's start with the positives. The writing. The writing was just so good. It was simple, unearthly, with a dash of creepy, and I was hooked from page 1. The relationships between the characters, oh my god, especially between Christopher and his mother. I just loved to see that. Like, I feel like that is Chbosky's signature writing element, where he already showed us in Perks of Being a Wallflower, and I feel like he delivered that to us again in this book. He establishes like a deep sense of relationship between characters, even if you only see a little of that on page. And those are the things that I loved about the book. But my love for that book stops there, because oh my god, what was the rest of the book? Even the things that I said I loved got real annoying real fast after that, because this book is 700 pages, y'all, and it is the same thing again and again and again. I have so many complaints about the book, and I don't even know where to start, and I hate that I even have to do this, because I really wanted to like this book. I really did enjoy the beginning of the book, but then it just all went downhill from there. First of all, this kid is 7 years old, right? 7 years old, imagine that. Practically we can do nothing, yet we were supposed to believe that he is in charge of building a treehouse, and like he literally builds a treehouse with his friends, which even, okay, far stretch, but okay, fine. It just like, he just could have been a little bit older, because 7-year-old just does not make sense for this story, for this storyline, however it went. Okay, so that was one of my main complaints. And another complaint I had with the book is the whole flu narrative. Okay, so like everyone in the book gets the flu. That's kind of how the hissing lady takes control of people, and even Christopher has the flu. And imagine you have a 104-degree fever all the time and you're sick all the time, yet you think a 7-year-old kid is just going to be like, you know what, I'm just going to put cold water on myself and just pretend I'm not sick and just does things. Like, no, like, just no. And the whole city, the whole place is like that. And I'm like, it just doesn't add up. It just doesn't make sense. But no, that was the entire plot. They were always getting the flu. And the cherry on top of why I hate this book is that halfway through the book, you know, the fucking Christmas day where the world is about to end, that happens, and the rest of the book is kind of the entire Christmas day. Like, can you imagine? Like, I honestly thought, I was like, you know what, we're almost halfway there, and Christmas Day is already one day away. Oh my god. So what is going to happen to the rest of the book? And I guess Stephen Chbosky must have thought that too, because he stopped writing about one thing and started a whole ass different book. Like, it is still connected. It is still a sequential thing that happened. Except, it was just totally different from how we started with the first part. So I was like, wait, what? What? Like, the rest of the book, okay, became this whole one day in detail event of, you know, people just running around, and there being a totally different plot line because of some absurd plot twist that he introduced in the middle. And there were biblical allegories, biblical parallels, and I was like, no, like, too much, just tone it down. Like, he was, listen, even by the halfway point, he was already rambling on, right? Because I was so tired of listening to just people getting the flu and like him thinking baby teeth or, you know, something or the other. There was always something or the other to complain about. And this kid was just doing it. This kid who was 7 years old, who is still managing to try to rescue the entire world, and all of this is happening, and then the complete plot change came, and then something happened. It was so annoying. I was frustrated with this book, and by the end of the book, because I needed to stick through the book, I started hating it. So yeah, I went very close to DNFing this book, and I don't think this was worth a read at all. This book was just like too much rambling and not enough payoff for the end. Like, I rated this a 3-star, which sounds like a lot, but I did enjoy the writing in the beginning, and I did think that the elements that I spoke about were so good and so well done. It was good. It was kind of worth reading for that. But definitely not if you're like looking at the blurb and going, oh, this seems like an interesting book. I hope things that happen in the blurb happen, but no, they don't happen. They don't. It takes on a very weird turn at multiple points, and the whole biblical allegory thing just like was just annoying. I just don't think it's worth it, and yeah, I'm just glad I did not pay for this. Yeah. And the final book that I read this year is Permanent Record by Edward Snowden. Now, if you don't know who Edward Snowden is already, he's a guy who revealed that the US government and a lot of other governments internationally are spying on their own people, and how they were invading our privacy in very unconstitutional and illegal ways, bypassing the legal systems that were established to prevent that from happening as well. I knew that there was some gray area regarding privacy that happened, and I knew that Edward Snowden was in the forefront of this thing, but you all, I did not expect it to be this intense. Like, honestly, like, I'm not going to go in depth into this because it is technically his life story, and I really don't know how to review a memoir because it seems like a gray area in itself. How can I rate this person's life. You get what I'm saying? But the things that I learned from this book was so crazy. Like, I'm going to read you 3 parts of this book. First off, the main reason we need to be aware of what the US is doing with data is because even if we're not situated in the US, our data, 90% of the world's data is going through US firms, which is subject to US laws. It was just so scary to me to read about some of the things that the US government was doing in 2007 or 2008 with our data. There is this one part in the book where he talks about Vanek phreaking. So Snowden is talking about this particular method they use in the US to spy on people, which is called the Vanek phreaking. The methods we learned about at times seem close to voodoo, such as the ability to reproduce what's being displayed on any computer monitor by using only tiny electromagnetic emissions caused by the oscillating currents in its internal components, which can be captured using a special antenna, a method called Vanek phreaking. Now, if you're going like, what the fuck are you saying? I am too. But the baseline of what he said is that the US government had a way to just use an antenna that received frequencies from the way the parts inside your computer moved around, and they were able to reproduce whatever was on your screen. Ditto, without having access to your computer, without having access to your internet or bugging it or anything. You get what I'm saying? That's bizarre. Seriously, how did we not know about this? And also, this was in 2007 or 8 or somewhere like that. We are 10 plus years ahead now. So if that was possible then, it is fucking crazy the things that could be possible now. And that is why we should be really scared of what could happen if a wrong government or someone higher up in a government whose morals are not exactly good gets control of this and starts spying on everyone in the country and uses the data to make enemies out of people. This could target marginalized folks in any way. The ability to have this is not a problem in itself, because we do need good high surveillance to, make sure that we are all safe. But when the government is bypassing the legal system that were established to prevent the government from taking advantage of that system, that is dangerous. If you're like, I don't care about free speech, I have something for you and you should listen to that. So this is a bit long. This starts from here and goes up to this place in this other page. And I know it's long, but I hope you listen to it, because he mentions why we should be concerned about privacy, even if you're like, I'm already so public in the internet, so how is that going to affect me? Just listen, okay? There is simply no way to ignore privacy, because a citizenry's freedoms are interdependent. So to surrender your own privacy is really to surrender everyone's. You might choose to give it up out of convenience or under the popular pretext that privacy is only required by those who have something to hide. But saying that you don't need or want privacy because you have nothing to hide is to assume that no one should have or could have to hide anything, including their immigration status, unemployment history, financial history, and health records. You're assuming that no one, including yourself, might object to revealing to anyone information about their religious beliefs, political affiliations, and sexual activities, as casually as some choose to reveal their movie and music tastes and reading preferences. Ultimately, saying that you don't care about privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different from saying you don't care about freedom of speech because you have nothing to say. Or that you don't care about freedom of the press because you don't like to read, or that you don't care about freedom of religion because you don't believe in God, or that you don't care about the freedom to peaceably assemble because you're a lazy, antisocial agoraphobe. Just because this or that freedom might not have meaning to you today doesn't mean that it doesn't or won't have meaning tomorrow, to you or to your neighbor, or to the crowds of principled dissidents I was following on my phone who were protesting halfway across the planet, hoping to gain just a fraction of the freedoms that my country was busily dismantling. And that is true. Like, there are countries where, like Hong Kong and everywhere, where like we're all fighting for freedom in some way or the other. There are authoritarian regimes where people are fighting. And then here was US, the freest country in the world, who are very busy with dismantling all those, freedoms, getting more and more authoritative. And that all of that is scary, which is why you should check out this book. Check your privacy, folks. You need to, okay? And you need to learn about it. And I feel like this is a good book to start with that. So that's why I rated this a 5 out of 5, because it was so informative and also so important. And it is a good book. It's a very simply written book that anyone can read, and that is why you should check it out. So yeah, that was my January wrap up, and I hope you liked what I said about these books. Even if you did not like them, let me know in the comments and we can maybe discuss that. Please let me know if you decide to pick up any of these books or decide to not pick up any of these books based on this video. And make sure to click the subscribe button if you want more of me in your feed. That's it. Hope you have a nice day. Happy reading.